Yes, okay. So first, yeah, Yesh Atid, this is the one that got to make the actual government. And it translates to there's a future. What a nice future. This one's very centrist. It's formed by Yair Lapid in 2012. And they want to create the center of Israeli society. And they're very secular middle class, so very much center of the way, not trying to push any buttons or anything. Let's see. And this is an interesting one. They want to end military draft exemptions for the ultra-Orthodox, which is a major subject in Israel. Don't touch it. You never touch that issue. It's a fiery one. But as we can see over here, they for liberalism, economic liberalism. So all the normal European states, all the English-speaking countries. Just the normal state. You buy and sell things, have trade deals, all the kind of normal stuff. They're more secular and anti-clerical. They form the liberal Zionism, which is kind of the nice, cute version. And they're for two states. So a Palestinian state and a Jewish state. Now, based on this alone, you can stick them over here. Let's get this higher. There we go. I kind of put them center, more on the liberal leaning side though. Only because they really don't follow the conservative side. They're much more kind of pushing towards the left of Israeli society. And let's see what else they have here. And this, you can look at the 2019, 2020 things. There are lots of alliances, betrayals of alliances, back and forth running, and it gets very, very complicated. But effectively, it's more of a centralist party, very much opposed to Netanyahu, what he's doing. They want a very different version of Israel. What it's going to be, kind of have to wait for that. Let's see. The change parties in Israel focus on a lot of different things, help the middle class. Let's see. It's always Israelis must be drafted to the army. All of them must be encouraged to seek work, including the ultra-Orthodox and the Arabs. So they want to bring in even the Arabs into a unified Israeli society. Yes, fighting political corruption. I like this part. Minister without portfolio. So a desk job, a cushy little desk job. Let's see, fight poverty, get rid of red tape, help the people. It's a help the people campaign. Unions. Okay, get rid of matriculation exams, differential education. Okay, we're getting into specific stuff here. Making a constitution to regulate tense relations between people groups. They want a constitution as well, and they want the two-state solution. Oh, very interesting. So they're definitely focusing on the different strains of Judaism that you're going to find in Israel, where they're not just letting the Orthodox Israelis, or the ultra-Orthodox ones, the Haredi ones, to kind of do whatever they want. They want to focus on lots of different people throughout Israel. And this is the one that we're going to see very briefly. Instituting civil marriage in Israel between same-sex couples. This is what pushes them way to the left in Israeli society. And that was not something that people welcomed before. That's not something they really welcome now, especially in the much more strict conservative areas. So peace negotiations with Palestinians, halting construction in Israeli settlements. So very much not a big settler person. This is what pushes them much more to the left. And I would say, actually, even based on that, let's just push them even further. I'm moving thingy. No. There we go. Just put them directly to the liberal side. Even for that, that's moving very, very far away from the normal parties you might see. Right, the first one there. Now to the blue and the whites. And you'll notice down here it says Israeli Resilience, which was supposed to be the political party that the blue and whites, they formed an alliance with other parties. That's one of them. They're the only one left now. If you remember, they had 35 seats in this parliament a few years ago. Now they have 8, because a lot of what was happening kind of fell into pieces. All right, so Benny Gantz is the leader of this one. He got talked about a lot. They thought he'd be the new prime minister. He'd be another prime minister. Well, no, it didn't happen. Well, let's see here what he stands for. So we have Zionism, so Jewish people can stay in Israel. We have liberalism, it's kind of boring. Socialism, liberalism, that's nice. Progressive society, it's kind of like just a good government. It doesn't really say much. And then the big tent approach. They say catch-all alliance, but that's a big tent. Everybody's welcome. We'll bring everybody. We'll have a big government full of everybody. Let's see, what do they specifically want to do? Oh yes, and these are the people who Yesh Atid used to be part of their alliance. Then they left. Did not work out very well for everybody. Here, Derech Eretz, that's down to 1. Telem was part of Yesh Atid as well. They're gone now, all gone. Bye-bye, very much gone. And you can notice down here, these parties have something called national liberalism, which is a little bit different. It's liberalism, but it's also kind of pushing in a nationalist direction. Like, we want a free and open society of Israeli people who are very committed to the state. So it's kind of this trying to dip into both pools and take like a lot of similar things and put them together. So anything specific they want to do? Okay, rooting out corruption. Wow, that's a very original thing to have. Protection of Jewish identity. Okay, yes, again, Jewish people live in Israel. Civil marriage will be made permissible in some form. Marry according to your beliefs. See, egalitarian prayers at the Western Wall, which was suspended by Netanyahu. And then he got rid of that. So it kind of tells you what you would do sometimes. Education here. A lot of healthcare stuff. It's COVID-19 time, so there's a lot of healthcare going in. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. An annexation plan. Jordan Valley. Okay, so basically, if they say Jordan Valley, this is the West Bank. It looks like a kidney up here to here. This is the Jordan River Valley. Goes down here a bit too, but essentially, they're talking about this section. From the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea. They just want to take all of this. Boom, that's Israeli territory. No more Palestinians. No, you don't keep. It's ours. So that's what he's talking about by annexing that. No Palestinian right of return. Very interesting. That's kind of sad. That makes them permanent refugees. So permanent refugees. And Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Okay. So even if it appears more liberal, this is very much kind of conservative, but just barely conservative. It's not even close to it, really. It's a weird in-between where they're trying to be more liberal, but they're just really not that liberal. So you can kind of put them as like, not quite, kind of over here, but it's in a weird position. And this is what happens when you keep trying to appease everybody and you can't pick what you want to do. You end up just kind of like, we're for the conservatives, we're for the liberals, gay marriage, no gay marriage, annexation, everybody can come, everybody's free. Jewish people are very important. And it kind of just like, it's like everything, it's very confusing to people. You need to pick something specific. See? Yair over here picked a specific platform. He has more he has more seats than Gantz has right now. So he's doing a little bit better. Then we come to the Labour Party, which if you know anything about international politics, this should be easy to guess. The Israeli Labor Party here. Do oh good. Try and pronounce it. The Mifleget Ha'avoda Ha'Yisraelit. Why? Well, let's do a pronunciation.
مفلكة هعبدها هي إسرائيلي.
I got it. I got it. Okay, anyway. Ha'avoda is their main name. The labor. They labor. They're the Social Democrats, also Zionists. Remember, the majority of parties are just Zionists. That look, you want people, you want people who are more left-leaning, more liberal. Great. It's not really in Israel. They're all Zionists. The Jewish people are staying in Israel. They're not going anywhere. Political parties don't really differ much on this. They're just staying there. They're not going to suddenly be, okay, we're all going to leave. No, that's never happening. And they have been the main political party for decades and decades. They were a very, very powerful one. They lost a lot of it in that time period. Now they're down just a few different seats, 7, which is typical for many of them. And we can see social democracy, so more about giving more taxes, creating a welfare state, using the wealth of the companies and the government to help people and create a better society. In labor Zionism, these are the people who made a lot of the kibbutzes, trying to create a lot more Jewish farms and communities and spreading them across the land of Israel. Let's see down here too. Main policies. Yes, evolved from the socialist movement, from socialist Zionists, changing over time. They were very hawkish for the Labor Party. And over time, they're probably moving into a mixed economy with strong social welfare. With social welfare, it always should tie hand in hand with social democracies. But I'm guessing they're probably, in sharp contrast on the liberal policies by Netanyahu. So they're meant to be more of a social democracy. As you can see here, increase the minimum wage, more social security, trying to help a lot of people. They most likely fall in that category, so we can put them a little bit further over to the left. To the left, to the left, everybody goes to the left, to the left. Yes, I know you're amazed with my amazing singing. Let's go over here. And definitely liberal over to the leftist section. Definitely that in-between category, right between those two. That's a good section for them. With social democracies, you also have to be careful because you can say you're one, but you can do a lot of more liberal-leaning things, which make you more of a neoliberal party for other parts of the world. You say you're trying to increase the minimum wage, doesn't happen. You can say you're trying to get more welfare, doesn't happen. A lot of things can work out like this. But remember, these people are all in the government now. They have ministerial positions for each of them. They have different ministers of this or that. They have more of an influence in politics, so they can actually do things now. They can exercise a significant amount of power, much more than in the past. Right? I'll be right back. You guys can take a look at this. And look at that Russian part too. It's a mystery bag. Boom, I'm back. Now, this one that we're going to look at, let's see, Israel Beit Ainu. Oh my. Israel's our home, and also notice there's a Russian translation for this. That is not a mistake. So here we have a secularist nationalist party. So again, kind of, we're not religious, but we are moving in that more nationalist, like very strict. Support Israel no matter what. Support the country no matter what. Let's see, it's a national movement with a clear vision to follow in the bold path of Zev Jabotinsky. He formed revisionist Zionism, which is an interesting thing I can look at very quickly here. It was represented by immigrants from, of course, the Soviet Union, so more Russian speakers. It wants to get more broad appeal in Israelis. So there's a weird thing with the Russian part, because a lot of Jews from Russia emigrated to Israel, about 1 million or so. However, a lot of them aren't considered Jewish or Ashkenazi Jew. That's only some of them. A lot of them just became kind of like Russians in Israel, even if they think they're Jewish. And they say they are, and they practice it, but the government says, no, you're not. That's a weird subcategory, and some of them aren't. So there's a lot of Russians in Israel, and they command some of the votes, and political parties try to get their votes. There's a weird subsection that exists. So hardline the peace process. They want another two-state. Okay, another one. They want the two-state solution, and exchange of some Arab parts of Israel for larger. There we go too. And they're willing to do something a little bit different. They're willing to give them some Arabic parts, or Arab inhabited parts of Israel, for parts of the West Bank that the Jewish people have been settling and creating cities in. They're more anti-clerical. They want to get the ultra-Orthodox into the military too. And that's a big thing, because a lot of the people who are ultra-Orthodox or Haredi, and more in America, you would know Hasidic Jews, they do not want to serve in the military for a few different reasons. And this creates a lot of tension, because there's a lot of them, and they have their populations growing as a percentage of Israel, and they keep saying no. And this is creating a problem, because this is reducing the amount of people who can go to the military. And a lot of parties want everybody to go to the military. But if you want them to vote for you, and you want to promote Judaism in the country, you have to work with them, which means not pissing them all off. And that creates that issue. Let's see, very nationalist but secularist, anti-clerical, still liberalist but very national liberalist. The Russian speakers, that's a minor pet thing. It's not specifically political one way or another. So we could probably put them somewhere in like the centrist column, not one way or the other way really. Now here's the revisionist Zionism part that they mentioned very quickly. And they want to revise settling the Eretz Yisrael, which is settling Israel. It differs in its territorial maximalism, which means they want more land. You want the full territory insisted upon by the Jewish right to sovereignty over the whole of Eretz Yisrael, which they equated to the whole territory covered by the League of Nations mandate for Palestine, including Transjordan, which is interesting. Let's see here. So what they want is to take over Jordan, the country, the kingdom of Jordan, with Israel, and colonize that entire section. So essentially, they want to take over more territory and add that to Israel. I don't know how tenable that is. This is what they want, to take over all this too. I really don't think that's feasible. I don't know who would support that. Let's see, have they made any progress? Do they have a plan? They have a spreadsheet. I'm not seeing much progress in this direction. I'm probably going to say no. And again, these are very simple outlines. Like, the individual parties are going to be more complex than this. It's not as simple as just saying these are their policies. Individuals make specific choices, which can turn them more right or left leaning. It just depends what they're doing. Let's see. Put them more, yeah, they're kind of with the blue and white. We're kind of the similar one, but a little more conservative. So I'll put them a little bit further up here. Not totally, but moving in that direction. Yeah, as a Soviet-born Israeli politician, ooh, was a minister of finance too. Very nice. You know, see, and it's the amazing thing. They have 7 seats out of 120, and their leader gets to be the finance minister. But that's how it works. If you want to create a government, a coalition, you need to work with people and give them these types of positions. Let's see. Alright, not seeing too much extra stuff. Oh, interesting. Let's go to statements towards Arabs. Propose that Israel citizens should show a sign of loyalty or loyalty oath, or lose their right to vote, which is very right-wing, by the way. You're not going to demonstrating consistent loyalty to a country gets creepy after a while, and it goes to the point where you're checking passports and licenses. You're telling them to recite the oath immediately, or something happens to you. Like, you just need to relax. Like, if they're citizens, let them be citizens. Let them do what they want. Oh, they described them as Arab collaborators. That's great. Ending with the Nuremberg trials, the heads of the Nazi regime were executed. I hope this will be the fate of the collaborators. Okay, not very friendly with the Arabs. Not at all. Okay, I think we're fine to put him more conservative. He seems to be very comfortable over there. Next we'll go to Yamina. And this one's important. I showed this one already, but the Yesh Atid, their leader gets to be, he's the foreign minister right now. He also will be the alternative prime minister, because they'll be switching their prime ministers. The Yamina head, he gets to be prime minister for 2 years. Then the Yesh Atid, Yair Lapid, he will get to be prime minister for 2 years. So it's a switch, 2 to 2, just like that. And this will be Yamina, but Yamina is known to be much more to the right and much more religious. You can see here national conservatism, economic liberalism, so kind of liberal but very conservative in that way. And again, Zionists, their branches are secularism, religious Zionism, specifically around the concept that the Jewish religion, Judaism, is important, must be focused on. Yes, and they're right-wing to far right, in some ways a bit kind of very far right. They were willing to work with religious groups on the right, but they couldn't make a government with them. So instead, they went around and worked with this series of parties. What are the four? There we go. Oppose any Palestinian state, any withdrawals. We would develop settlements. This is what I was talking about, much more right-wing. Yeah, defeat terrorism. What a goal. We're going to end it. It's done. Work towards Aliyah. If you don't know, Aliyah is the policy where Jewish people have a right to go to Israel and become citizens right away, because it's the state of the Jewish people. Break up the monopolies and the cartel. Again, more the corruption thing. Reduce central planning. Interesting. If the right to work stuff. The reform labor law so unions can only represent all workers in the workplace, so they have a majority of its workers' union. Okay. This weakens unions a little bit, so this is a bit of an attack on unions. Mandatory government arbitration to solve labor disputes. Yeah, okay, I think it's fine. Yeah, let's put them a little bit over here. Yeah, they're much more conservative. And their leader is the current Prime Minister of Israel. So you'll be seeing him, Naftali Bennett. That's his name, Naftali Bennett. Put them in the middle here. They're much further to the right. I got his name right. I hope I got his name right. Naftali Bennett. There we go, yes. And if you want to see him, this is him. You can look into his face. It won't let me. Oh. Okay. Look. Keep looking. Are you done looking? Okay. He'll be the Prime Minister. You will see more of him. And again, this is the new right. It, like the other, like blue and white, it was supposed to be a electoral alliance. Multiple people joined. It kept breaking up, changing names, going back and forth. There's a lot of detail, but we're not doing that. Now for the New Hope. And this is the one that really did not want to work with Netanyahu. Its name is Tikva Hadasha. Interesting. And they are, let's see here, national liberalism and Zionism. Again, kind of the same thing over and over again. Strong, so okay, strong. So that's capitalist, but mixed economy. But I don't know how mixed that's going to be. Okay, it will expand the welfare system, but it wants to reduce the bureaucracy. They support term limits. Ooh, they want to do mixed member representation too. So in this one, you can have like people run for specific seats. Like I'm running for parliament from Jerusalem, or I'm running from Tel Aviv, or I'm running from Beersheba or somewhere. And then you would also vote for members in the party too. So you vote for a person and you vote for a party. From these, you can kind of mix and match. So they want to kind of have specific people run and get elected. But again, they're pretty small, but they're kind of like in the middle of everything. So I wouldn't put them as centrist. They're doing more of these with the Yesh Atid, what the Israeli Labor Party would do. They're doing more of these, but they want to still kind of be conservative in some way. So I'll put them in the center. They seem pretty centristy. But they're much further away than these two guys. Where did I put these? Oh my. Okay, let's see here. And this is Gideon. This is Gideon Sa'ar. And he used to be from the Likud. Again, there's lots of defectors from the Likud, from Netanyahu's party. They do not want him to be continuing. They want to make their own party, their own world. Wow. Mother is a Mizrahi Bukharan. Oh my God. That means he was a Jewish person, or she was a Jewish person from Asia, specifically that would be like Uzbekistan. Yeah, from Bukhara. I think it's Uzbekistan. I'm not sure. And what does he want to do? Again, no two-state solution, only just Israel. He's going to involve Jordan. Wants to annex West Bank. He's okay with Palestinian autonomy and federation with Jordan. I don't know how this would work exactly. Some interesting ideas. This. I'll talk about this later at some point. It was involved in trying to protest against this, where Israel had settlements in Gaza. There were Jewish people living in Gaza. There were also, when they owned the Sinai Peninsula, oh my God, I said peninsula. They also had colonies, but towns and cities across that area as well. But they evacuated all of them, the Sinai in 1982 and Gaza in 2005. But he was very opposed to that, so he's very in favor of more Israeli settlements. And last two, and these are the last two for the actual government. Yeah, okay. Now we're getting more into the left-leaning ones again. This is Meretz, which is vigor. Ooh. Left-wing, social democratic. This is the Green Party, by the way. If you're from America, these do exist. They're actually not that important. It's important to be environmentally friendly, but they don't have much power in parliaments across the world. They're just kind of here and there. In a few cases they do, but not as much. Social democracy, secularism, feminism, progressivism, egalitarianism, green politics, two-state, labor Zionism, much more to the left, way more to the left than normal. And again, 6 seats, so you can see how kind of divided everything is. Even if you're more kind of right-winger in the center, you get kind of the same thing. There's a lot of splits politically. Let's see here. Peace between Israel and Palestine. Freeze the construction of the settlements. More LGBT rights. Human rights in Israel-occupied territories. Separation of religion and the state. Let's see here. Environmentalism. A social democratic welfare state. Okay, yes, much more to the left. Oh my God, I'm gonna keep thinking that song. To the left, to the left. Everybody goes to the left, to the left. There we go. So I put them here. I actually put them a little even farther moving to the left, because they're advocating more policies which move that way, and they have not have as much time to move away from their policies. And now they're in the government, so they can probably promote them. I believe they have the ministries. The minister of they'll be the health minister and the environmental, or the minister of the environment. So they got their specific ones that they want, and they can begin enacting some of those policies actually. And then we have the United Arab List, which is a thing to talk about. So this is not a political party, it's a group of political parties. Because for some of these, they're too small to get enough votes. Instead, whoop, you get all the parties together and they work together. And it's known as Ra'am, which means, ooh, it's thunder. Wow, it's thunder. It's the Arab political party in Israel, the political wing of the southern branch of the Islam. Oh my God. This thing of this thing of this thing of that thing. Now, the Joint List exists as a political party, as an electoral alliance in the opposition, but not in the government. It's not in the government. And they are conservative. They are for Israeli Arab interests. Islamism. Oh my God. Islamism and social very conservative overall, a two-state solution. But they're on the other side. They're advocating for Muslims instead of the Jewish people in Israel. Let's see here. What is their platform? Yeah, 2 states, split it all up. Equal rights for Arab citizens. And they're popular in Negev, Bedouin. You guys need to know that. There's a lot of Bedouin, who are the people who live throughout much of northern Africa. And a lot of them are here, which is the Negev Desert. This whole area is a very large desert. It's difficult to live in this section. Some little farms and towns here and there, but it gets very deserted after a while. However, the Bedouin live in a lot of the parts down here too. But this makes up a ton of Israel where people do not want to live because it's very hard to live there. Alright, let's see. And you can see their party's going up and down, all the time. And they are composed of who? Let's put on a list. They mostly fall in the more conservative section, but we're talking conservative just in their beliefs, as far as it goes with their, what do they call it? Their stance on Israel, who gets to own what, who goes where. They fall into a different category, but they're still conservative, so we'll put them in this section. Let's see. Now, some of them belong to more specific political groups. That's what I'm looking for here. They didn't mention it, so I'm wondering if they're all just, it's one large political group. Lists aren't supposed to be, but let's see what they are. Okay, it seems like they're all just part of the joint list together. Yes, they are. Yeah, right. So here, so that's all of the government section. The rest of the parties fall into the opposition, which I'll probably cover at a later point because this will run forever if I do that. But these were all the parties which couldn't form a government and didn't want to form part of the change government. So now they're stuck down here, and that's where they're stranded at. Let's see here, and I have some extra stuff. So this was something interesting that happened. In 2021 at Mount Meron, there was a crowd crush. So a lot of people were going on a pilgrimage. It's the tomb of a rabbi called Shimon Bar Yochai, or Yochai, maybe. And during this, a lot of people died. It's 45 deaths, 150 non-fatal injuries. And because of this, there's a big inquiry into who's responsible, was it poorly managed, what's going on, and part of this also fell on Netanyahu. But this happens on 30th of April, which meant if he's trying to make a government and he comes under more political pressure, it hurts him more. So this would make it difficult for him to make a government under these conditions. And part of the platform for the new government of Israel is that they're making a commission to investigate this, to assign blame and see what needs to be changed in the future. You know, it's strange to hear. I don't hear about these very often, but it does happen occasionally. It's very unfortunate for everyone involved as well. Oh my. But we've introduced all these people, and they form up the 36th government of Israel. They are the Bennett-Lapid government. See everybody smiling here. And these are all the different members. They formed most likely all the ministers, all the people allied with the government. This, remember, Reuven Rivlin, he's in the middle. Here you have Lapid over here, and then here is Bennett, and they'll be the alternating prime ministers. All right. I have some extra stuff I'm going to go through up here before we finish for today. In the next one I'll make, I'm probably going to cover the opposition, and then I'll include some of the more fun political parties. Israel is just like any other country. They have the interesting people who didn't make it to the government, but are contributing some interesting things nonetheless. Right. So firstly, as soon as the government got in, they had a no confidence motion immediately by the opposition. Likud and everybody else was trying to break up the government. Didn't work. They were defeated. Too bad. Here's the prime minister now. He's talking with the UAL, the United Arab List leader, Mansour Abbas, over here. See, we're all buddies now. And they got defeated by 60 to 49 and 59 to 50. Ouch, that hurts. Let's see. No, nothing else much to report here, though. This was a side issue that they were perhaps extending a ban on family reunification in Palestine. They couldn't extend a law to prohibit Palestinians to marry Israelis and to receive citizenship in this way. So they can't prohibit them to do this, but some people wanted to, just to keep more of the Palestinians and Israelis kind of separated from each other. But expect much more of this to come into play, especially as it does not align with some of the political parties that are being involved here. Let's see here. And this is just a thing on the new prime minister. He is more right-wing, more religiously right-wing. However, you have to work in a government. I just saw his party. His party is over here. They are the Amina, but they're some of the farthest right-wing of all the other members. That's one. There's about, how many? There's 8 different members. You have to work with everybody. You can't just be yourself. So even if he is more right-wing, he has to work with everybody else. He has to play nice with all the little boys and girls. Let's see here. I don't know why I have this. More stuff on the, more stuff in the government. Not so interested in that. What are some of these guys here? Cleaning it up. All these tabs. Ah, yes. I want to mention this too. Reuven Rivlin is not going to be the president for much longer. Sorry to say, but now it's going to Isaac Herzog. And you get elected, the president gets elected from the Knesset. So these people vote who to make president. If you win enough votes, you're president. And yes, he's from the center left. I don't know which party he's from. He was from where? Yes, he was the main Labor Party member. And now he's elected to this. But it's non-political. You're not supposed to be politically involved. You're supposed to do the job. Don't involve yourself too much. But he will replace Reuven Rivlin, as the president soon. It will be his job to oversee all this coalition fracturing and fighting, political badgering back and forth. Now this part as well is interesting. This is Lepid. And he is now the foreign minister. He's going to visit the United Arab Emirates, and I believe by this point he already has visited them. And he's extending ties with these different Arab countries as they open their relationships with Israel. But you'll see him more on the international stage as well, because as the foreign minister, you're very involved with all the affairs of the state. See, and this one's interesting. The Israel's foreign ministry is waving the LGBTQ flag for the first time, which is interesting because Netanyahu's government, the Likud party, part of the way they maintain power, they're very far right-wing, in some cases extremely far right-wing, but they also have religious branches. The branches kind of go back and forth. They are not very friendly towards the idea of gay rights, so this would not have flown in the previous administration. Now, however, because, again, he is more pro-gay rights, he was in favor of civil marriage, again, they're over here towards the more liberal side. Now, this is something which is more acceptable, and you'll start to see it more often. The Israeli Labor Party, they're involved with this. The Meretz Party, they're fine with it. The blue and whites are doing something. I don't know what their policy is. But you can see how they're pulling this more to the left now. And you're going to see these things come back and forth. Maybe some people disagree, we'll see what happens, but something like this is now possible. And again, this is the inquiry into this. It's a very big, very politically charged event as well. And this is a key part here. They're thinking that perhaps Netanyahu, with his allies in the ultra-Orthodox community, didn't want to limit the number of people going to this procession, so they let the numbers go up and up and up to uncontrollable amounts, and then you had this kind of stampede where people got trampled to death. Now, whether that's the case or not, you have to investigate. But this is what they were concerned about, that perhaps they're being lax with their regulations because of this. One by one, the tabs disappear. And from the Hasidic sect, they're getting interrogated. This is going to become a major issue, as well as the fact that they want to push the idea that the Haredis, so the ultra-Orthodox Jews, the very, very religiously conservative ones, should serve in the military. This, with the draft law they want to put in, will continue to create pressure in this direction. And as a side note here, the Bedouin, I mentioned them, that live in the Negev desert down here, they're not very positive of much change. Now, Mansour Abbas is getting a bigger budget for the Arabs in Israel, the Israeli Arabs, the ones that live in Israel, not Palestine. He's helping to get their towns recognized so they can live there. Some of them are unrecognized. They're illegally constructed, or they were deemed illegal by the state, and he's trying to help them. Some people don't really agree. They don't like the idea of an Arab party joining with the Jewish parties. You have to get laws passed, but they just don't like it, at least the way it looks. You can see here, people aren't very positive, not much. People kind of think, yeah, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. We'll see. Alright. I believe that covers most of what we're going to talk about. Let's see, anything else? Alright, that'll probably call it a night from this point. We've covered enough stuff. We'll move into the other opposition parties next time. Some of the more fun ones, too. There's very, very extreme right ones, but also interesting left-leaning ones, and then very specifically focused single-issue kind of parties. But we'll get into all those next time. So for now, look at my